You are packing your bags for the American dream, but the moving truck is backing into a financial graveyard. The mass exodus is real, and it is accelerating right now in 2026. People are not just leaving bad neighborhoods, they are fleeing entire time zones. They are running from astronomical property taxes, maxed out credit cards, and local governments that treat residents like infinite ATMs. No myths, no filters, just reality. We are looking at the fastest dying states in the country, the places where the middle class goes to evaporate. The top 3 are absolute nightmares. But the state sitting at number 1 is bleeding residents so fast it looks like an evacuation. And you might be scrolling Zillow for it right now. Number 10 is California. The Golden State is rapidly turning into the empty state. Between 2021 and 2022, California lost 0.29% of its population, equating to about 113,000 people. The reasons for this mass departure are varied, but one of the main drivers is the crushing cost of living. You can smell the desperation in the air, a mix of distant wildfire smoke and $9 oat milk lattes that nobody can actually afford. As of June 2023, the median home sale in the state was approximately $786,000. That is hundreds of thousands of dollars above the national median. Rent is completely detached from reality, sitting at the 3rd highest in the nation with an average one-bedroom going for about $1,658. It is a system designed to extract every last cent from your bank account. A local on a neighborhood app summed it up perfectly. I finally got a massive promotion at work, which means I can now afford to split a damp studio apartment with 3 other engineers and a stray dog. Businesses are not staying either. Between 2018 and 2022, 352 businesses left the state, including massive names like Tesla. It is a beautiful place to live, if you do not mind working 80 hours a week just to remain completely broke. If you think the West Coast is bleeding out, wait until you see the microscopic collapse happening on the East Coast. Number 9 is Rhode Island. This state is tiny, but the financial pain is massive. Rhode Island lost about 3,200 people, or 0.3% of its population recently. It does not sound like a lot, until you remember you can drive across the entire state in about 45 minutes. The sensory experience here is specific. It is the freezing, salty ocean breeze mixed with the jarring sound of your car suspension snapping on a pothole that has been there since 1998. The state is plagued by slow economic growth, expensive housing, and remote workers packing up and taking their tax dollars elsewhere. The median home sale was sitting around $462,000, but the real issue is that a massive portion of the population is heavily cost-burdened, spending over 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. U.S. News and World Report ranked Rhode Island economic growth at number 38 in the country. Wallet Hub rated its overall economy the 12th worst in the nation. The infrastructure is crumbling, the jobs are stagnant, and the locals are exhausted. One resident recently posted, "Our official state bird should be the orange traffic cone, considering they have been working on the same bridge for 3 years while my property taxes keep going up." It forces you to ask a serious question. If you were forced to choose, crumbling historical infrastructure with high taxes, or a soulless desert subdivision where you do not know your neighbors, type your survival choice below. Because if you think Rhode Island is a trap, the next state is watching its entire working class vanish into thin air. Number 8 is Pennsylvania. The Rust Belt decay is alive and well here. From 2021 to 2022, Pennsylvania population dropped by 0.31%, resulting in a staggering loss of approximately 40,000 people. You walk down these streets in the winter, and all you feel is the biting gray slush seeping into your boots, surrounded by the quiet hum of factories that shut down decades ago. The state is suffering from a lethal combination of heavy outmigration and a rapidly aging population. A massive number of working-age people are packing up their lives and taking their talents down south, resulting in an estimated $106 billion in lost income. Philadelphia saw 16,000 people flee, and Pittsburgh lost about 17,000. Why are they running? High taxes and a total lack of fiscal stability. U.S. News and World Report found that Pennsylvania has the 12th worst fiscal stability in the entire country. You are paying premium taxes for a discounted quality of life. The local gossip is brutally honest. My block is just me, 2 retired steelworkers, and a Dollar General that looks like it is about to get repossessed. They are fleeing to places like Florida, Texas, and North Carolina, searching for a system that actually works. But leaving the Rust Belt is only half the story, because the state at number 7 proves that warm weather cannot save you from absolute economic collapse. Number 7 is Louisiana. You assume the South is booming because of the warm weather, but the Bayou State is actively drowning its own middle class. Between 2021 and 2022, Louisiana lost over 36,000 residents, a massive 0.8% of its population, and the bleeding has only accelerated into 2026. You step outside in August, and the thick, suffocating humidity instantly wraps around your throat, mixing perfectly with the smell of stagnant swamp water and the mildew creeping up the siding of a house that the insurance company refuses to cover. This is not just a population shift, it is a climate and financial evacuation. The state is currently trapped in a catastrophic insurance crisis, where major carriers are packing up their briefcases and abandoning the coastline entirely. Citizens Property Insurance, the state-run insurer of last resort, has been forced to hike premiums by over 60% in some parishes. You are paying luxury coastal prices to live in a swampy subdivision that floods every time a heavy storm rolls through. The job market is completely stagnant, heavily reliant on a volatile petrochemical industry, leaving college graduates with zero options but to pack a U-Haul and head for Texas. The local chatter is deeply cynical at this point. My homeowner premiums just doubled again, so now I get to pay a small fortune to live under a blue tarp roof that has not been fixed since the last hurricane. The economic math simply does not work anymore. It brings up a real question. Would you rather accept a massive, beautiful southern house for practically free if it meant living with a daily stress tax on your peace of mind because the next storm could wipe it out financially? Let me know your perspective down below. Because if the southern swamps are drowning in debt, the Midwestern plains are freezing their residents out with sheer municipal greed. Number 6 is Illinois. The Great Chicago Exodus is not a right-wing talking point. It is a cold, hard, mathematical reality. The state lost over 104,000 residents recently, making it one of the absolute worst places for domestic migration in the entire country. The sensory experience of this decay is brutal. It is the biting, sub-zero wind chill coming off Lake Michigan, carrying the faint, metallic scent of the elevated train tracks, while you wait for a bus that was cut from the city budget last month. Illinois operates on a simple, parasitic model, extracting the maximum amount of wealth from its citizens while delivering crumbling, defunded services. Wallet Hub consistently ranks Illinois as having the second highest property taxes in the nation, sitting at an agonizing 2.27%. You do not really own your home here, you just rent it from the government forever. Major corporate anchors, like Boeing and Citadel, have aggressively relocated their headquarters out of Chicago, taking thousands of high-paying jobs with them, and leaving the local tax base completely hollowed out. Violent crime in the city centers forces families to retreat to the suburbs, but the suburban property taxes are so tyrannical that they eventually just leave the state entirely. The everyday resident is completely tapped out. I love paying $12,000 a year in property taxes just to hit a crater-sized pothole that bends my rim on my way to my second job. The state is essentially a giant financial sinkhole, punishing anyone who decides to stay and build a life. But if you think the frozen Midwest is a trap, wait until you see how paradise is mathematically engineered to bankrupt you. Number 5 is Hawaii. You think escaping to an island is the ultimate American dream, but living in paradise operates like a high-end financial meat grinder. The state has been hemorrhaging its local population for years, with thousands of native Hawaiians and lifelong residents being forcefully priced out of their own ancestral homes. The visual illusion is perfect, but the reality is exhausting. You catch the sweet, tropical smell of blooming plumeria flowers, but it is instantly overpowered by the heavy exhaust fumes of endless tourist rental cars idling in gridlock traffic on the Kamehameha Highway. The cost of living in Hawaii is the highest in the nation, sitting at an index of 179, which is absurdly detached from the national average. A simple gallon of milk can cost upwards of $8, and the median home price hovers around a terrifying $850,000. The local economy is entirely dependent on low-wage hospitality jobs, meaning the people who actually run the island can never afford to buy a piece of it. Wall Street investors and tech billionaires are buying up massive tracts of land for apocalyptic bunkers, while local families are forced into crowded, multi-generational homes or literal tent cities on the west side of Oahu. The digital gossip is heartbreaking and exhausted. I am working 3 separate resort jobs just so I can afford to serve my ties to rich tourists, while I sleep on an air mattress in my cousin's living room. You are completely trapped by the Pacific Ocean and a rigged housing market. It brings up a real question. Is it better to live somewhere completely boring and affordable, or breathtakingly beautiful but mathematically designed to keep you in perpetual poverty? Drop your thoughts. Because the next state is not just losing people to moving trucks, it is losing them to the grave. Number 4 is West Virginia. The Appalachian collapse is not a slow, manageable leak, it is a devastating, generational hemorrhage. West Virginia has consistently ranked as one of the fastest shrinking states for over a decade, losing tens of thousands of people in a very short window. The isolation here is heavy and physical. You can hear the loud crunch of gravel under your tires on a winding, foggy mountain road, surrounded by the faint smell of burning trash, because the county quietly cut the waste disposal budget again. This state is dealing with a catastrophic demographic death spiral. It is one of the only states in the country where the mortality rate consistently exceeds the birth rate. The young, educated workforce is fleeing the moment they get a diploma, resulting in a massive brain drain that leaves behind an aging, highly vulnerable population. The coal industry, which was the beating heart of the local economy, has been entirely hollowed out, leaving behind boarded-up pharmacies, rusting industrial equipment, and a devastating opioid crisis that tore through the remaining families. Real estate here is dirt cheap, but it is cheap for a terrifying reason. There are no jobs, the infrastructure is crumbling, and the healthcare access is dangerously limited. The local sentiment is incredibly dark. The only thing booming in my county is the dollar store and the line at the clinic, but hey, at least the mountains look pretty in October. West Virginia is a beautiful, tragic reminder of what happens when a single industry abandons a state, leaving the locals to simply manage the decline. But if you think the mountains are bleeding out, wait until we hit the top 3, where entire metropolitan areas are being liquidated. Number 3 is Massachusetts. The intellectual capital of America is slowly turning into an exclusive country club that the working class can no longer afford. Between 2023 and 2025, Massachusetts watched tens of thousands of its most productive residents pack up and head for the exits. You step onto a transit platform in Boston, and you are immediately hit with the smell of stale Dunkin' coffee and old brake dust, accompanied by the grinding screech of a commuter train that is delayed for the fourth time this week. The state is suffering from a massive, systemic affordability crisis. The median home price has casually shattered the $700,000 mark, and the legislature recently pushed through a new millionaire tax that was supposed to fix the crumbling local infrastructure. But it triggered a massive capital flight, where high-net-worth individuals simply changed their legal residency to Florida, taking their heavy tax dollars with them. Therefore, the financial burden falls directly on the exhausted middle class, who are left to fund a massive state budget. You are paying absolute luxury prices for a municipality that feels completely broken. The local frustration is boiling over on community forums. I make $80,000 a year, and I am practically legally required to have 3 roommates if I want to live within a 45-minute commute of my own office. The state is effectively acting as an economic bouncer, quietly shoving young families out the back door. But if you think the East Coast is aggressively pricing people out, wait until you see the absolute urban chaos unfolding in the Pacific Northwest. Number 2 is Oregon. The Pacific Northwest was supposed to be a pristine, progressive utopia, but it has quickly devolved into a relentless survival test. Oregon has officially flipped from a migration destination to a mass exodus zone, losing tens of thousands of residents over the last 3 years. The sensory reality here is incredibly grim. You walk through downtown Portland, and the damp, freezing pine-scented rain mixes instantly with the sharp, acrid smell of burnt foil and untreated street waste. The state is bleeding out because of a catastrophic combination of skyrocketing taxes, paralyzed law enforcement, and unchecked municipal decay. Multnomah County alone has lost over $1 billion in taxable income, as fed-up families and massive retail chains flee to safer, cheaper borders. Businesses are not just closing, they are completely boarding up their windows with thick plywood, because the local authorities basically refuse to prosecute property crime. This is the definition of a failed system, where the everyday taxpayer is left holding the bag. The neighborhood apps are filled with sheer exhaustion. They finally put a new pharmacy in my neighborhood, but every single item is locked behind heavy plexiglass, so I have to ask an armed guard to hand me a stick of deodorant. It is a beautiful state that has been fundamentally broken by terrible policy. It forces a tough question. If you were forced to choose gorgeous mountain views in a state that refuses to enforce basic laws, or a flat, boring Midwestern town where you can actually leave your car unlocked, type your survival choice below. Oregon is breaking the spirit of its own residents, but the state at number 1 is suffering from an evacuation so severe, it is literally shifting the entire United States economy. Number 1 is New York. The Empire State is the undisputed king of the great American exodus, bleeding population at a rate that is mathematically terrifying. Since 2020, New York has lost hundreds of thousands of residents, heavily driven by an absolutely suffocating cost of living and a government that views the working class as an infinite revenue stream. You stand on a Manhattan street corner in mid-July, and you are instantly hit with a suffocating, hot garbage smell rising from the subway grates, perfectly paired with the deafening wail of an ambulance stuck in endless gridlock traffic. New York is built on an economic model of total financial extraction. According to recent fiscal data, the state has the absolute highest tax burden in the entire country, sitting comfortably above 12%. You are getting taxed on your income, your property, your sales, and your absolute sanity. The median rent in the city has casually pushed past $4,000 a month for a tiny, unrenovated box. Because of the permanent rise of remote work, people suddenly realize they do not need to freeze in the winter and hand over 60% of their paycheck just for the prestige of a New York zip code. Wall Street firms, massive tech companies, and everyday working families are packing up and migrating down south, leaving the state with a catastrophic budget deficit. The digital gossip here is just dark, and completely defeated. My landlord just raised my rent by $600 a month, and the elevator in my building has not worked since last Thanksgiving. You are paying a heavy premium to live in a beautifully crumbling museum, and the residents have finally decided to stop buying tickets. This proves the American dream is not dying, it is just desperately relocating. The middle class is being actively hunted by bad fiscal policy, corporate greed, and municipal failure, forcing families to constantly search for a system that actually works. The reality is, you have to adapt, or you will simply be priced out of your own future by a local government that does not care if you stay or go. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe so you do not become just another statistic in a broken municipal budget. Question everything, trust the data, stay aware,